Hey y'all, hey. It's another edition of the Cozy Corner Crazies. I'm your favorite crazy Chris J. I wanted to just kind of like take a moment and just kind of take a step back from everything that we've kind of just been talking about. Obviously, if you've been following, we just had a birthday celebration for me, and it was truly a blessing, and I'll get into that in a minute. But I also wanted to just kind of give you the heads up of what's coming, and so we're going to be coming into those the next few chapters of what brought me to this place and really discovering um, the whole trauma thing. And I've talked briefly on that, and obviously now I'll talk a little bit more about it and then talk way more. There's always going to be an explanation about the trauma and that response and things like that. And essentially trauma is just like a really intense emotional and psychological response to a major event. A lot of people associate trauma with like abuse, whether it's physical, sexual, etc. But you can also get trauma from like car accidents and major surgeries and like natural disasters. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get trauma. In my case specifically, I have had major surgeries and I have had abuse, sexual, mental, emotional, physical, all of it. And so most recently with the toxic relationship that I was in, there were events that took place and just really a lot of things in between, the way that I was talked to, the way that I was treated, um, a lot of things that I found out that were happening behind my back. And so it's just a lot of things that kind of made that relationship pretty abusive, and not really being able to have an out on my own unless other people decided that for me. And I I realize now, as I'm coming into it, the truth of trauma has been an intense one. A lot of the, short terms is like denial and shock, kind of like your average steps of grief and what people go through in grief, which, mind you, you can go through grief. You don't have to just have a loss. Grief is also associated with trauma. And so long-term effects, which is what I've kind of been experiencing, is so you have a lot of flashbacks, or you can have physical. We talked about the physical embodiment and how that manifests physically. And so I get a lot of headaches and sometimes I get sick. And it's just a lot of different things that I was not prepared to handle. And my truth is pretty difficult. The more I prepare and the more that I start kind of rereading over everything, and looking at past messages and looking at the things that I've written throughout my experience, and really just getting back familiarized with everything that happened. It's been a journey for sure. And I'm putting it out there because a lot of these things are common in friendships, relationships, family, and we wouldn't think that a lot of these things are toxic until they become overpowering and overwhelming, which is in my case what happened. And towards the end of it, I was in complete shock and denial. I had already lost my mental, and there was a lot of resistance to the idea of letting go, even in all of the abuse and even in all of the way that I felt, and how shamed I felt. I still couldn't let go of that situation. Similar to how trauma happens in abuse victims who are sexually assaulted. In some cases, they even fall in love with their abusers. So it's just a very interesting thing, and how the brain works. And as I'm looking back on all of these things, I realized how much pain was involved in this process, and I'm still kind of going through it. Hence my birthday celebration this weekend. So I actually thought that I was going to be alone this past weekend for my birthday, and I am blessed to say that I have a select few friends that I haven't seen in a long time, that we reconnected, and they made sure that my birthday experience was a memorable one. I was never alone, and even in my moments of, because I can't control the flashbacks, they just happen. And even in happiness and all of that, I had a lot of moments where I just needed to sit down and take a minute for myself and cry. And they listened, and they wiped my tears, and they were my shoulders to cry on. And I feel extremely blessed because I am, even though I have my support group and I have my therapist, this is a process that I'm going through on my own. And unless you have actually gone through trauma yourself, you will never know what this is like. My brain and my biology and my body has changed. Sometimes it feels like I'm not sure if I'll ever go back. So we're working through that. But one of the things that I got to do that was an amazing blessing was I got to spend time with my previous students in my previous job that I worked for, and they're graduating from the 5th grade to the 6th grade, and I was able to go and be a surprise for I call her my student child, my school daughter, and it was a beautiful exchange. She cried, I cried. It was just awesome. And then I ended up having my own little surprise because they had a surprise birthday cake and sang me happy birthday. And so it was a really beautiful experience. But even in that, as I was on my way home, I had probably the biggest breakdown that I had throughout the entire time that I was spending with my friends. And it was like a 5-day journey of doing different things, lake trips and cabin trips and things like that. And so I wanted to I wanted to just ignore that moment, but it was so overpowering in me that I couldn't do it. I was having flashbacks, I was having memories. It was all very overwhelming. And I wasn't flipping tables or anything like that. It wasn't anything like that. It was implosive in me. There was a lot of uncontrollable crying. I had migraines, and a lot of nausea, and I just kind of had to just push through it and go through it. And that's the truth of my trauma. No two traumas are going to be the same. With my particular situation and the abusive relationship, I suffered a major loss this year, and then that happened, and then the things that happened afterwards kind of just piled on top of it. And a lot of people were involved in this, and I'm I'm learning how to forgive everyone because at one point, the people in my life who, I want to believe that they meant well, but it didn't seem like that at all. They were trying to force me into a place to talk about this stuff. Now I can, and of course, there are a lot of blank spaces where I still can't talk about certain things. But when this happened months ago, I was not in the position where I could explain what was happening to me. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, my brain was shut down. I couldn't do a single thing. All I knew was anger and resentment and how I felt and the pain because I was reliving it without saying what it was, because you don't just say what I'm gonna say in these next few chapters, in these next few blogs. You don't just easily say that and what you did and what I was asked to do. And so I was not given time, and they took it upon themselves to try and get explanations, and what they got were lies, because what was done to me was not talked about. And a lot of people now have a terrible image of me. None of it is true, and while everybody else is just kind of living their lives and moving on, there is no telling when I will be able to bounce back from any of this. It's an everyday battle that I feel successful in. There's no extra effort needed when you're trying to go back to work and when you're doing school, because I don't need any extra to do these things. It's kind of like tying my shoes or brushing my teeth. They're natural to me. I don't need any extra push in that regard. I do, however, have a lot of difficulty trying to function, like eating and trying to not have flashbacks and trying not to be depressed. And it's a heavy, heavy burden on me because I never thought that this would happen, and with the loss and the trauma, and they just kind of collided together. That wasn't something that I could have expected at all or even prepared for. And even having all of my tools and even having all of my coping, I I still snapped and I still lost it, and I'm still healing and I'm still recovering, and I'm grateful when I can get up out of the bed and not want to sleep all day, or um, not drinking. That's a huge one. Not drinking and not doing drugs, and I'm proud of myself when I don't do those things, and I'm proud of myself when I don't use those as coping mechanisms. Obviously, I'm still learning how to manage all of it. There's not a single thing that I can do. There's not like a magic pill that I can take. I take something for my anxiety when it gets too out of control, but other than that, there's no magic serum. There's no magic formula that can help me through this. This is a daily battle of fighting against my anger and my resentments for the way that I've been talked to, and the way that I've been treated, and the way that I've been pushed away, when all I've ever done is try to help others in their own brokenness. And I would like to consider myself to be a kind-hearted person, even though there's a lot of things that are being thought about me right now that are not true. I can't change what people choose to believe. People who know me, they know me. And they know that I'm innocent at heart. And all I can say is that in the mistakes that I made them thinking that people were true. My mistake was trying to change the red flags to purple ones, and trying to believe that things could be different, even though promises were already broken before that, and lies that I had to overcome. And so I'm just, I'm in that. But another truth of the trauma is that no matter how long it takes, it can be overcome. The harder we fight, the less likely we are to fall. And that's what I'm learning right now. I'm learning that even though I feel weak, even though I may sound weak in this struggle, I know that I'm strong. Because it is so much easier to just walk away and act like nothing happened, or make up lies so that you don't have to look bad. But I am extremely honest about everything that has happened up until this point. I continue to be honest. I am vulnerable, which is really hard because you just never know. And I'm brave, and I know that I am, choosing to fight this thing, and choosing to forgive and not walk in bitterness, and learning how to do that for myself, and learning how to love myself, and learning how to not have shame despite the things that I've done. Learning how to do all that takes courage, and I'm willing to learn every day. And I will not be a coward like my counterparts. Just walk away, step into something else, have other people comfort you. Nah, I'm doing this like a champ. Me and God. And I will not run and I will not hide. I will not bash people's name. It's not me. And I still have care in my heart. Even though I don't want to, I still have that hope, I guess, that everything will be okay, even if I don't see it right now. And so that's what I give to you all. Stand with me in this fight and stay encouraged for your own lives. It may seem like it's the end of the world, but maybe it's just the beginning of yours.